To my show. The series is Vignettes of Korea by me. It is featuring 10 pieces in ink and watercolor, and it is about my time abroad last year in Seoul, South Korea. And before we begin the discussion about the project, I just wanted to quickly say thank you to Charlotte, Mary, and Nick for helping me out with this. Charlotte for helping run the gallery with my original show 2 weekends ago. Thank you, Charlotte. And then thank you to Nick and Mary for opening up their lovely home to me and allowing me to show my art and have this event in the first place. So thank you, Nick and Charlotte.
Thank you.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's start talking about the series. And actually, to begin, this starts about a year ago. I was, in the height of COVID, and I wasn't even sure if I could do study abroad anymore. This was a huge concern because programs are canceling left and right, and I was, investing so much time and effort into trying to go abroad since actually high school. So many years previous, I had been trying, and it was just such a struggle, but I didn't want to let this dream die. So I, reached out and found a program that would be willing to still allow me to go. And I went through the USAC program through University of Nevada, Reno. And they had this great program that allowed you to connect with the school, but other than that, it was totally up to you to decide your own journey. And I went through them, and the whole reason for this show is actually because of the scholarship that allowed me to go, which is Freeman-Asia. And this scholarship, you can get a ton of different ranges of awards, and they gave me basically my tuition, which allowed me to go. And this is for them, so thank you. Yes. And so to commemorate my time there that they allowed me to experience, I wanted to capture the moments and the stories that I had gone through while I was there, hence the name Vignettes of Korea. So to begin with the thematic tie between all of these paintings, I want to explain to you the concept of jong. Now in Korea there's the concept of jong, and this is kind of the, kind of intangible concept of connectedness to the Korean culture. And I really loved this idea. I was fascinated with this kind of concept because it was, something that couldn't be explained in words. You just had to feel it. I really did feel it while I was there, because even though the country was closed off, there was still a unity there among the people and the culture and all of the historic landmarks that I got to see and people I got to meet. So with the first piece, I wanted to make a diptych. This is the first diptych of the piece, and for those of you who do not know what a diptych is, it is two pieces tied together either literally and made two different paintings or drawings or whatever, or tied together thematically in two different pieces. And this can also be a triptych, so if you hear that, now you know what it is. So this is the first diptych of the series. All of these, by the way, are unnamed. I just don't have a tradition of naming them, but this is me at a subway station. And while that might seem, pretty inconsequential, it is actually something that I experienced every day, and I wanted to kind of encapsulate all of those moments, those smaller moments, into one larger moment when I was actually leaving Seoul to another city called Pyeongtaek. And this is me returning to Seoul after that long, arduous day, and kind of having this quiet moment in the open air station where I saw this glorious sunset and just kind of had this beautiful, quiet moment like a movie. And I kind of wanted to take that specific time to kind of represent all of the times that I was able to just kind of have that small moment in the in-between. And that's what this is representative of. This one is featuring me and my friend Laurel, who is actually the only other real person I depicted in these paintings, other than myself. So shout out to my friend Laurel. This is us visiting the Bukchon Hanok village in Seoul. Now, this district is known for having the entire area made up of completely Hanok-style buildings. And Hanok is the traditional architecture and style of buildings in the Korean architectural fashion. So these two are paintings of when we visited a traditional Hanok tea house. And they brought out the tea set, and they would explain to us how to use it in English as well as obviously Korean. And they would walk us through how to use each of the pieces because it was a complete set. And in this way, we were able to compare what we were hearing here in the shop to what we had learned from our education about the tea ceremony culture and just traditional culture in general. And there's things that you wouldn't even think about, because in Korea they have this whole system of hierarchy. And in these paintings, I wanted to show kind of in a small way that hierarchy and that structure to their culture. And in Korea, you never receive things with one arm. You always either support your elbow or put two hands on the cup you're receiving if that person is either of a higher status than you, older than you, or a more senior position than you. So in this way, the tea consultant, the waitress, she was obviously more knowledgeable and stuff, and so my friend Laurel is having two hands on the cup. And in terms of the tie between them, there is a notion of giving and receiving here, because in the painting with my friend, she is reaching her hands for the other painting of the girl to pour the tea for her. And there's also a concept of not pouring your own drink. You always are pouring it for someone else. And so in traditional tea culture, you can pour for yourself, but it's usually more of a shared experience with someone else. So if you pour for yourself, you are also pouring for someone else. And so hence why this waitress is the one holding the teapot and my friend is the one holding the cup. And this whole garden, this is more of a side note, but I just wanted to talk about the beauty of this seemingly inconsequential tea shop that actually was very mind-blowing for me, because the entire shop was this square, and in the middle of this square was this beautiful garden, all comprised of lanterns and big giant leafy plants. So I wanted to really play up the nature and the fauna that was at this tea shop by having the plants of kind of how they actually looked in this one, and then more of the feeling of the abundant flowers in this one with the flowers in the background. That is this diptych. So if we move to the dining room, and be careful on your way over there, I'll explain the next painting, which takes place in the Yeouido Riverside Park. All right, so this is the next piece. This is a painting of the Yeouido Riverside Park. Now, if you go to Seoul, there is one thing that you have to do, and it is going to the Riverside Park in Yeouido. There's several parks throughout the city along the Han River, which is a huge, huge landmark, because it kind of was like the reawakening of the city after the Korean War. It's kind of what they call it. Actually, what I learned was the miracle on the Han River, which is the city of Seoul, and it's kind of the heart of the entire country, kind of. So this Riverside Park is a beautiful place that everyone goes to, summer, winter, fall, spring, every time of the year, to experience the beautiful location of it and being in the heart of the city. So this particular location is the bus stop at Yeouido, because not only is it a beautiful Riverside Park, but the street and the bus stop leading there is actually a really nice spot, because they have a bunch of cherry blossom trees lining the entire street. And when it blooms in the spring, the entire street is just covered with these beautiful cherry trees. And you can see here that I have one sprawling throughout the top 2/3, because the focus of this isn't the people, it is the cherry blossoms. And I went there. This memory is more so, not so much the people here, but the cherry blossom trees are a memory of me going there with my friends for the first time to see these cherry blossoms. And we had a picnic on the river, and we rode bikes, and it was kind of the stereotypical experience, but it was something that, we just had to do. And we noticed it wasn't just, foreigners doing all these like traditional, things. A lot of the Korean people were there having such a great time too, and it was a great moment to see, how they took these moments and made, in such a busy city, a small, slow, quiet moment to just enjoy with friends. And that's something that I think that a lot of people crave, especially in Seoul, where, the busy city life, you can put on pause for a moment for these quiet picnics on the riverside. And so this is actually one of my favorite memories in Korea, because it was just, thinking back to it, it makes me emotional, because I was just there with my friends, and it was like, I revisited it like 4 times, and each time it was just such an amazing experience. They had like a ferry there with like a ramen maker. Like, you just put your ramen there in the convenience store that's on the ferry, just plop it in there, it makes it for you. Like, what? I love it. And you just can rent they have like a little marketplace, and you can rent like the mats, and they have these like nice little confectionery, all these like side stalls with like the ajumas, which is like the Korean, not elderly, but like older ladies that just sell their food, and it's just chef's kiss, beautiful. So I love this painting because it's just representative of all those times that I went. And yeah, so that's this painting. So now we can move out. Oh, well, it's kind of hot, but I think I'll speed through them a little bit faster because there's a lot out there, but I did want to talk about the ones out here because some of them are some big moments from my time. And I think they also explain the culture a lot. So starting with this one, this is at the, I could totally be pronouncing this a little bit wrong, but the Bokunsa Temple in Seoul. There's a bunch of Buddhist temples because the culture is deeply rooted in Buddhism and Confucianism and all of these religions that originated in the Eastern Asian regions. And so in this painting, I wanted to depict the moment of Buddha's birthday, which is a huge holiday. Think of it like Christmas level in Korea. And the entire city is sprawling with lanterns. Along the sidewalks, they will string these lanterns along. And in the temples, they have giant canopies just sprawling throughout the entire area. And all of these lanterns represent wishes for people and prayers that you have for others or yourself or the time that we're in. And so here I wanted to depict the colorful ones because they're a little bit more representative of happy things, because there are also white lanterns, and these tunnels of white lanterns depict prayers and wishes for people who are either sick and ill or deceased. So I wanted to show something a little bit more on the happier note, but I did put some white lanterns in there to just show what I did see.
You're wearing the same skirt there.
Well, that's not me, but yeah. Well, I mean, this long skirt thing is very in fashion. Let me tell you, their dress code is very, well, I say dress code, but it just happens to be that everyone dresses like that. But anyway, I digress. So I wanted to kind of just show what it looks like, because we went at night to just kind of see all the lanterns all lit up, and it was just a beautiful time there. So I wanted in some way to represent that. So moving on to the next one. This is at the Botanical Garden in Seoul, and you'll notice that a lot of these take place in Seoul. That's because that is where I had actually stayed. I stayed in student housing in Hongdae, so a lot of what we saw was right there in the city. And honestly, even though I was there for 4 months, it still feels like I barely saw anything. Like, there's just so much to do and see, and people that you can meet there, that 4 months is just not enough. I'm definitely going to be going back, mark my words, but yeah, okay. Sister trip. So this is at the Botanical Garden in Seoul, and they have a ton of just beautiful plants that are organized by regions in which they grow. And this is a giant lily pond that they have there. It was just giant, and they have these little catwalks that go just over the water, and they set things up in such a way that they know that you're gonna take pictures there. So they have these little photo stations and stuff that you know, me and my friends obviously capitalized on. So I wanted to make sure that I somehow represented both the beauty of the lily pond, but also kind of showing like the actual like moments that we took. Because this is actually referencing a picture that I took there, or that a friend took of me there. And I wanted to kind of bring that to life in painting form. So that is what I used here. Then moving on to this one, which is a little bit different from the others, because this one, as you'll notice, is very, very structured and very detailed, because I wanted to accurately show what I saw when I went to the Gyeongbokgung Palace in Korea. Actually, gung means palace. I say this a lot because it's funny to me, but gung means palace. So if I say Gyeongbokgung Palace, I'm really saying Gyeongbok Palace. So I think that's just a funny little thing, but I've told quite a number of people.
It's like ATM machine.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, exactly. So I just like to point that out because it's funny. Because you'll see a bunch of like restaurants and stuff called like the Gung Restaurant or something, and it'll be like Palace Restaurant. So now you know that whenever you go to visit and you read the signs, you know. So this one I kind of took a different approach. I want to talk about the process a little bit with this one. All of the paintings, I took a direction of sketching, then inking, and then finally painting. And so with this one, the sketching process was actually I used a tracing method that utilizes chalk, and I actually had done layers of the paper in which I had basically put the design on that I wanted. And then over that was the chalk layer, and then over that was the reference. And so I went through and I had to like meticulously use this pen to like carve in the chalk so that it would show up on this back picture. So when I went to the inking process, I could know what the architecture looked like without having to like, you know, keep going back and forth all the time. So it definitely made that a little bit easier. In terms of the painting, it was actually really difficult to figure out the right tones, because sometimes these pictures don't really accurately represent the saturation that they still, like these buildings still have. So I wanted to really make sure I brought that up. But conveniently, since these architectures are very like meticulously done, there's very deliberate patterns within the architecture, which made it kind of feel like a painting by numbers, where I had one color, but I could fill in all these like little pieces. And so I kind of went through it with these patterns in mind. And so eventually it came up to this, and it's just me in front of the grandness of the throne room, because each room is actually its own separate building, basically. So this is in front of the throne room, and that's why it is so large and grandiose, because it's like the big building. So that's this painting. So moving on to the next painting, the one on the top there, that is me at Dongdaemun Plaza. Now Dongdaemun is another region, or another like district of Seoul, and this is kind of the more businessy, high-end stores and malls and stuff. But they also have the Dongdaemun Plaza there, which is where this is at. It has an art museum, and the entire museum is in and of itself its own like art piece, basically. It's an architectural art piece, and it's covered in these metallic plates that you can project stuff onto. In this memory, I actually was going with a bunch of my friends to go see a light show that they had displayed at the Dongdaemun Plaza, and there's this bridge that kind of goes under this building. Like, I'm standing on the bridge and this building is scaling above me, so it's really cool to kind of walk in it and see the interesting like weird ways that the building curves and forms around the plaza. And down below, because I'm on the bridge, but down below there's actually like slanted walls, so people during the show would lean up against the slanted walls and just lean there and watch the show above, and you would look down and see all these people lined up like that. And it was really, really cool to see how many people would turn out, both international students, Korean citizens, from all different age types, coming to see the artwork here.
And so I just wanted to represent that, and to get this display on the Dongdaemun, like the art museum there, I actually used a wash, which I don't usually do because I like more paintings like this where it's like meticulous and very like detailed, small, and that's kind of what I lean into because I'm more of a drawer than a painter. But this, I really wanted to lean into the watercolor effects, so I did this giant wash of these colors that were there, which is like the greens and the purples and the blues, and I really wanted it to meld together to form this gradient. And so that's what I did here. So below this, we have a girl at a coffee shop. And it might seem kind of, in comparison to some of these other ones, a lot of it more low-key, but I wanted to really represent the coffee shops because there are so many of them in Seoul alone, because their coffee culture is like nothing you have ever seen before. Everybody goes to get coffee, even if you don't like it. You go there to get, to study, to do work, or just to hang out. If you don't know where to go, you go to a coffee shop. And they have a bunch of themed coffee shops too. Like I went to this drawing cafe like 3 times. It was amazing. It was in like Gangnam, so it was a little bit of a subway ride, but it was worth it every time. So I just kind of wanted to represent that in a piece where a girl is just studying on her laptop at a coffee shop, because it's just such a big part of the modern youth culture that people will just go and hang out at coffee shops for hours because there's just so many of them. And I had a lot of great moments there too because they have rooftop cafes and you just look down at all the people and just see all of them doing their thing, and it was kind of interesting to just have, again, these quiet moments that made me feel connected to the people there. And with that wraps up all of the 10 pieces that I have here in my series for Vignettes of Korea. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for coming out. So I hope you guys enjoyed the explanations. And again, thank you to Nick, Mary, and Charlotte, to the Scholarship Freeman-Asia, and the program that allowed me to study abroad last year, USAC at University of Nevada, Reno. So thank you so much. Yeah.